interstate and be in potential bumper-to-bumper traffic. I think Jared said yesterday the average was about 20 miles an hour on I-4 and I-75. I mean, those are roads that can have bad traffic generally, but I mean, that's slower than normal. As we got to 1 a.m., the flow returned to normal. But as we go through today, you're going to continue to see a lot of people on the roads. And so on one hand, that shows that people are taking it serious. But on the other, people just need to prepare for that. I mean, they're working really hard with the road rangers. They've opened the shoulders. There's a lot that's being done, and they'll continue to do it. They'll help with people that run out of gas. But when you have this entire peninsula on the West Coast that's under threat, the reality is like there's only so many places you can go in there. So just be prepared for that. Be prepared that you're not going to be able to go 75 miles an hour to get out of Dodge on the interstates right now. You probably could have done that in the wee hours of this morning, but as we get back to normal, it is going to be a little slower. That's just the reality.
For the debris removal, do we know just how much is left in the expected impact areas? Because I know you guys are running around the clock to kind of
estimate, but it's just a lot. We don't have an exact number.
So yeah, I mean, what I would say is there was a lot of debris. I'd say we've made a huge dent in it, but I don't think that even at our current pace, and even if we continue going through Wednesday morning, maybe even Wednesday at noon, that you're going to be able to get all of it. We're urging the contractors to do the 24/7 like we are. Not all of them are doing it. In fact, most of them are not doing 24/7. So the only place that really has had the sense of urgency is Jared and the FDOT. And you know, these are the debris mission is not the state's mission. That's a local mission. Kevin and I have been talking to local governments for years about make sure you have these contracts in place, make sure you're ready, because getting the debris up, even if you don't have another storm, people just want to see the debris up. I mean, it helps with the recovery. It's good for morale, and it's also just good for safety and good for cleanliness. And so we've been stressing that. And, you know, you have had vendors. Some have done pretty good. Others have just been very slow. That's just the reality. So, you know, we have all these different assets that are engaged in normal operations having nothing to do with debris. I mean, these are state agencies that have tasks that they have to accomplish. And, you know, Jared and Kevin basically scrambled all those assets across multiple agencies and are shifting it now to do this debris. So to be able to do 1,200 truckloads of debris in 48 hours. And these are big trucks. I mean, that's a huge thing. And you see them, they're being escorted with police escorts. And I think citizens, like people have told me, like they're thankful for this because it just shows progress and it shows that we're taking it seriously. So I think it's going to end up making a big difference. I don't think I can say that, you know, all the debris will be taken off, even if these contractors pick up the pace. But I do think it's made a difference. We'll have less damage from the storm as a result of what the state has done to supplement than if we had just done. And then even if just the fact that we did 24/7 at the landfills, that's helped private individuals. People are loading up their own debris and they're bringing it in. You know, they wanted to close the landfills. We said, no, it needs to be open. You're doing that. So it may not have been humanly possible to have all debris cleaned up from Helene until the hit of Milton, just because of how much it is. And, you know, you don't start picking up the debris immediately because people they compile the debris when they're gutting their homes and figuring out what's. So it takes a little bit of time just to get on the target on that. But what we've been able to do, I think, has been historic to have this many state assets being brought to these local communities and helping them not just supplement the mission, but really augment it in a way that's making a real difference.
Are you seeing more requests for these flood control dams that have been proven effective in the last few storms?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've now, what do we have total amount of feet? We've got
over 11,000.
Yeah, 11,000. So we probably did, what do we do, 1,500 for Helene, 2,000 maybe?
I think it was a little bit more than that, probably just shy of 5,000.
Okay, so we've doubled that already. Kevin is working, and, you know, we'll see. We have had requests, and then some said, well, maybe do something different. But if we do get a request, one of the things we're interested in doing, we'd have to do it today, is finding a flood-prone community, maybe that have a lot of citizens insurance policies, and setting up tiger dams around, you know, the homes. I think it will be effective. So Kevin's working on that. We may do something in where Pinellas or Hillsborough. So when that happens, if it does, we'll announce that. So we want to use these. We want them to be put into practice. They did help against the surge in Hurricane Helene, and I think that they'll be helpful in the surge with this upcoming Hurricane Milton. And then what it could do is potentially help. I mean, we should, if Citizens Insurance, I mean, if they're going to be exposed on some of these storms and they can potentially buy Tiger dams for people who have that option, knowing you're going to have to pay out less as a result because you'll mitigate some of the damage, is that something that would be good? I think it probably would be. So we're going to actually support a lot of things to protect critical infrastructure, but then using it in the residential, however that is done with Kevin and his team, if that ends up being done, I think will be important because I think it can help people, but I also think it could be something that we could then utilize in a more significant way to protect against future storms.
Is this something that you're encouraging local governments to also invest in so that they have it on hand and not relying on the state?
Sure, but we also understand that just right now, that would be something that maybe they would do in a future hurricane season. We're not anticipating that they have very much to bring to bear now. That's mostly going to be driven by us, but it's fine. I mean, we always look for ways, what can we do to augment? This was something we introduced during Hurricane Debbie, which was not a storm on the level of Helene or Milton, but it did create surge, it did create flooding, and where that was used, it worked. It really did. It worked in Helene where it was used. I think it'll work in this storm as well. So we're going to have 6 weeks, 8 weeks of practice on this, where we then can look and maybe incorporate this as part of a larger part of our hurricane prep and response efforts. I mean, think about it. Go back 5 or 6 years. It wasn't the norm to necessarily have 40,000 linemen staged. Now people expect that. That's what we do. I mean, we have the electrical co-ops. They've got over 4,000 linemen that they're bringing in. 10 years ago, the co-ops would never have brought in linemen, and they may get to 7,500. So these things create, I think, good momentum. People then want to utilize it, and it won't just be the state in the future. But right now, we're kind of the main show in town on that.
A lot of Florida natives I've spoken to have kind of seen this storm as kind of like a gut check. Usually these are the same people who will wait it out and have hurricane parties and stuff, but these people are now saying, this one I'm going to evacuate, I'm going to go. You've lived here almost your whole life. I mean, where does this storm leave you as a native Floridian?
Well, what it leaves me is, someone that grew up in Pinellas County. And we never got hit by a major hurricane when I was growing up. In fact, they really haven't been hit by a major hurricane directly in a long time. When we look at hurricane preparation for the state, we look at that landfall in the Tampa Bay area as potentially one of the most significant storms that we can face. And that's not just, we would say, what if a Category 5 hit? But even a strong Cat 3 in the storm surge, I mean, this is a vulnerable area to the surge. So this is not something that is that was not necessarily game plan for. This is the main thing that you game plan for. And I know Kevin, when he was the deputy, they were doing exercises on this event going in there. And it's just, I think people realize there are certain parts of the state that may handle some of this stuff better than other parts of the state. I'm not saying you can't have surge in like the Panhandle, but it kind of surges. And if you're beyond that, Pinellas County is a peninsula. Tampa Bay, you have rivers, you've got all this stuff on the bay. There's just so much that surge can do. And so I think you don't want to have had Helene, but I think Helene also oriented people. If a storm 100 miles off the coast can lead to feet of storm surge, then what about a storm that goes directly in? And then I also think you have people who have kind of seen this, as I mentioned, when you go further south on the West Coast. Hurricane Charlie was supposed to be the gut check for Tampa. It went south. Hurricane Ian, I was in Pinellas County, I remember, 48 hours before Hurricane Ian. Everyone was ready. Then we went to Sarasota the next morning thinking, okay, maybe it's gone further south. And then it ended up going all the way down, making landfall in Lee County. So I think folks in Southwest Florida, places like Charlotte, Lee, I think they're like, okay, you can say that landfall is going to be in Bradenton Beach. And first of all, if that's the case, you're still going to get some impacts on that, and you could potentially have serious surge even 100 miles down the coast. But it also could wobble further south, and we could even get a bigger impact. So I think Floridians, between those two, they kind of get it. Now, I mean, I'm also just looking at Pinellas County, place I've grown up. If you have a storm of this magnitude, it's not just, obviously we want to protect people. We want no loss of life. It will create a lot of property damage, but it's a type of storm that potentially can have an indelible impact on a community. I mean, there are some hurricanes we deal with that it stinks to have to deal with it. You kind of pick up and you move forward. Then there's other storms like a Hurricane Andrew, like a Hurricane Michael in Panama City, like Hurricane Ian in Lee County, that just leave a mark. And so I think people, when they see that 180 mile an hour, and I know it's weakened since then, and it's projected to be even weaker by the time it reaches, but that's not guaranteed. This has the potential to be a type of storm not only that presents danger right now, not only can have serious damage, but also can have kind of that indelible mark on a community. So we are praying for the best. I know a lot of people have had Floridians in their thoughts and prayers. There's no way we're going to get out from this in terms of not having an impact. If it could jog south and just go out somewhere, we would love. That's not going to happen. So let's pray that it's as weak as possible between now and then. But we are preparing for it to be as strong as possible, and that is exactly how our response is going to be. Okay, we'll have more updates later in the day.